Hello, it's Words of Sorrow here with a new video. This time, a bit of a long one. It's basically going to be a few tips on how to play on Blood Gulch. The first matchup is Anders versus Anders. The second one is Cutter versus Anders, and the third one is Brute versus Anders. Now, I'm not normally a UNSC player, so if you're like a really high level player, then I'd take what I do with a grain of salt. I'm sure there are ways to make my builds as UNSC better. Um, I'm primarily a brute player, so keep that in mind. Also, there are multiple places in the video where the audio cuts out because this was a stream and my mic was obnoxiously loud, so I did mute a few parts. But anyway, I'm starting by building a supply pad first and queuing up a crate hog, just a warthog to go pick up extra supplies, since normally because of the hooks that are abundant on this map, going warthogs isn't quite as good, because obviously warthogs can't garrison themselves in hooks. So I only make one hog usually on this map just to help pick up crates. But besides the supply pad, I also go for barrack second because getting that supply hook is imperative to making sure you have an economic lead, because normally going for a barrack second would set you behind quite far in terms of economy. So you really need to be able to get that hook quickly so that your economy doesn't suffer for it. So I usually build one marine to garrison in the hook and then two flamethrowers to deal with the rebels. And that usually works out pretty well. You just have to make sure that the sniper doesn't target down your marine, and you're good to go after that. So right now all I'm doing is picking up crates and sending my units over to take that supply hook. I do send that warthog through the teleporter, since those teleporters aren't there for nothing, and even warthogs can make use of them. If you have where the crates are spread out on this map memorized, then you can use those teleporters to your advantage to be able to get to them before your opponent. But right here, I managed to clear out that hook without a problem, and I see my enemy's flamethrowers going up to take his hook, and I could ram them with my warthog, but I still think that getting crates is more important, because whoever gets more crates wins the early game, pretty much, and that's a hard thing to come back from sometimes. So we both have our hooks at this point, or at least I'm pretty sure we do. So I'm planning on going up and taking that reactor to deny him a fast Tech 2. He scouts me out here, but I scout him out as well, and he's already got Fortress. And we're not that far into this game. So right here I do get Fortress as well, but as you can see, the moment I get Fortress, I'm also able to do something with it. I queue up your reactor. You don't want to get Fortress for no reason. If you haven't finished building on your station, then there's no point in getting Fortress. There's just one of the many tips that I will give. Another good tip is to pelican your flamethrowers to hooks if they're far away, because those teleporters can only be so useful. Flamethrowers are infamous for being very slow, so the pelican remedies that. And I get to the hook right as he finishes clearing out the rebels, which is pretty much impeccable timing, since not only is he fighting rebels, he's also fighting me, which guarantees that he's gonna lose that hook. Timing is a very big aspect of playing the UNSC. I don't know why, but the stream kind of like started messing up here for whatever reason. But, I mean, the only thing I have to blame there is Twitch. But, besides taking that hook, I'm getting Spartans because I have the money to, and Spartans are good. And with this Tech 3, I'm able to get upgrade advantages. And after I get that last Spartan out, I destroy that barracks because I've got all the hooks I want, really. And in order to take those, I don't think that I'll need all that many flamethrowers because I'm getting tanks out. And sure, tanks can't garrison, but as long as I keep these flamethrowers alive, I will not need that barracks. Here he tries to come in with a single Spartan, which obviously doesn't work out. Hooks are very important, and if you're going to push up on a hook, then you're going to really need to dedicate a force in order to do it. I'll use an example, like if I'm going to try and take a hook on this map from someone and I'm playing Covenant, I usually make sure I have at least 5 jackals or something, because you never know if there's going to be like a single flamethrower or multiple flamethrowers. But here he comes back with a tank and he clears that hook out, but it's a bit too late since I've already got Tech 3 upgrades, and that's really what matters, because if we were to run into each other right now, I would most likely win that engagement since I already have canister shell. And I notice he still hasn't DQ'd his barracks, which I don't think is the best idea, once again, because once you have fielded a few flamethrowers, really, as long as you keep them alive, their only use is to garrison in hooks. And you don't need all that many flamethrowers to do that, because you can just clear them out with tanks. And the longer you have that barracks on your base, that's the less time you have for having a supply pad up there, which will give you more money and be better for you in the long run. I'm also building gremlins because tanks and gremlins is a far better composition than just straight scorpions. You'll notice right here that I'm starting to push up a bit, and I catch his warthog there. That does mean that he knows I'm coming, but honestly I'm pretty confident in this army I have here. Once again, because of that lead I have in upgrades is very important. Whoever gets upgrades first usually wins the game. Although, you don't want to overcommit to that line of thought, because if you have upgrades but no units, they're not going to do you any good. Here I click on his tank and I see he does have canny. So instead of going to try and deny that hook, I just go to his base instead, since his scorpions are already over there. And lo and behold, I catch his tank alone, and that lowers his chances of beating my army even more. Not only that, but I haven't seen any gremlins, and that usually does not bode very well. I'm also using the Pelican again to get the other half of my army over here, because I don't want half my army attacking and half of them just sitting at my base doing nothing. Although defense is a good thing, and you want to have units on defense sometimes. Right now it's looking like it's already the end of the game, because if you are losing these supply pads, you know, you're gonna have to rebuild them. That costs money, and that whole time you don't have those supply pads, I have supply pads, and I'm just getting a giant economic lead. So here I just take out those tanks, and that's the end of the game. So this next one is Anders versus Cutter, and I'm Cutter, as you can see. It's gonna be a different strategy, because this time, instead of going barracks second, I just queue up my supply pads and I can go for an elephant, which it's debatable whether or not it's worth it, but on this map I do think that it's worth it, because of the fact you don't have to build the barracks on your base, and you don't have to sacrifice that slot for a barracks in the place of a supply pad, which in turn translates into a better economy for the Cutter player. So I do think that the elephant is worth it in the long run. So my elephant comes out here, and I go ahead and tell it to give it to the supply hook. Now, it is very slow. That's probably the biggest problem with the elephant, and why a lot of the time I don't think it's worth it to build them. Because if you just build the barracks, Marines are so much faster than an elephant. But a way to remedy that is to lock your elephant down further away from the hook than you usually would, which is what I'm doing, as you can see. And that saves you a lot of time in the long run. And here I'm building the exact same composition I did the first time. One Marine, 2 flamethrowers, gonna do the same thing. Need to keep that Marine away from the sniper and into the hook. And here, these flamethrowers are keeping my Warthog on its toes, and I'm kind of struggling to find a place to get crates from, since I don't think I built 2 Warthogs this game. I think that's just because I couldn't afford it with queuing up that elephant, but if you find that you can queue up a crate hog, then I would. Here I do lose a flamethrower, but that's fine. And I'm bringing up this elephant up here so I can do the exact same thing I did last game, which is take that reactor hook from him, which is a big turning point. If you can get that hook, then that means you get upgrades and they don't, and that's the game already. Really, basically, it's just a redo of the first game, except with an elephant, which I do think makes it a lot easier. I think Cutter does have an advantage on this map because of the elephant, and also because his economic upgrade is just so good. I don't think it's as good as Anders, but on this map I do think it's probably better. It just makes your build flow a lot better. I don't know how else to describe that. But here I lock down my elephant again because of the reason I explained, because it's so slow, and the further you lock down your elephant from, the faster you can usually get there. And I'm gonna go ahead and start building tanks. I don't know if Anders or Cutter gets tanks out first. I don't really know timing of UNSC all that well, but I do think that this is pretty fast, and that is because of the elephant. So if there was any way that he could have taken out that elephant, that, you know, before it could come to this, where I'm pushing up on his hook and it doesn't look like he has anything to defend with, then that elephant dead would have been a very good thing. I wouldn't be able to pump infantry, and in turn wouldn't be able to take this from him and do the exact same thing I did last game, which is hijack this from him and get upgrades on him. Now, the one thing that Anders does have over Cutter in this matchup are gremlins, and that is a very big deal, because Cutter can get the hooks faster, you have to be able to take those hooks from him faster. Because the longer that Cutter has the hooks, the better his economy is going to be, and the worse yours is going to be. Also, I go ahead and start clearing out this base, since I do think Cutter has more of a agenda that revolves around expanding because of his economic upgrade. Apparently, Wolf is here, got on at this time, which is funny because not long ago I saw him on playing Roboblocks, which really surprised me because I thought that was a child's game. Not to take anything away from the Is Here clan, because they would probably crush me in a 1v1. But back on topic. I'm teleporting for a few units through to once again cut down on the time it takes to get across the map and scouting him. And once again, he still has that barracks up, and I don't see any gremlins, which are two very big mistakes that were repeated in, I think, both the games. And I'm already getting an expo up, and really, Marines and flamethrowers aren't going to be able to stop that when I have two tanks guarding it. Marines and flamethrowers are just gonna get killed. And here I am still building Marines and flamethrowers, but I don't want to sound hypocritical, but that is because I have this elephant here and it's not taking up a slot on my base. Also, with this expo, I'm going to go ahead and get reserves, which is another big thing. And another big advantage that Cutter has over Anders on this map, he doesn't have to sacrifice his economy in order to get reserves. And here he does manage to catch my little army of infantry, but in the end it doesn't even matter, as I'm able to get my tanks in there, and like I said, Marines and flamethrowers are just going to get completely destroyed by tanks, which is why you need gremlins as Anders to combat Cutter's tanks, which I do think are able to get out faster than Anders. Once again, I'm not a UNSC player, so I don't know that for a fact, but it just felt like this game I did get tanks out faster. And I was kind of expecting for tanks to try and attack my expansion, but that never happened, so I pushed up on this hook, and I take that as well. And after that, it's pretty much the game, because this is such a hook-oriented map. If you have 0 out of 4 of the hooks, then you got a problem. That's not a position you want to be in. And if you are in that position, well, you better be able to take those hooks back very quickly, because if you don't, like I said, that's the game. My expo is undefended here, but still no push, and I do notice that he DQ'd his barracks finally, but it's a little too late for that. My economy is already pretty much good enough that I can double pump, and I'm at max pop on top of that. Right around here, he does start building gremlins, but once again, it's a bit too late, and apparently I did see he DQ'd that barracks, but in place of that barracks there's a reactor, and there's just another barracks there, so I don't know what went on there. Something, but I don't really see a point in destroying your barracks if you're just going to rebuild it. But once again, I don't know what happened there, so. But I'm still improving my economy and starting to invest more in my expo by upgrading those pads. And basically, not only did that expo give me reserves, it gives me more of an economy, and a double pump as well. And on top of that, he can't base race me. So if I go in to attack his base, he can't push up on my base and try and kill it before me. With 2 bases, you can't do that. Here I'm doing the same thing, using the Pelican to my advantage, and once these gremlins go down, that's going to be it. You know, you can't just build gremlins. You have to make sure that you have a good balance of gremlins and tanks. Gremlins are purely support units, and to have an entire army of them just never works because of how lightly armored they are. They're a very high level unit and require a lot of micro, and you have to tank the damage with the scorpions and then stun whenever you can with your gremlins. But anyway, that is that game. And now on to the Anders versus Brute match. Now, I play this a lot differently since it is Brute, and I do know this matchup a lot better than Anders and Cutter matchups, so I do hope my commentary is a bit better on this one, since I have a lot more knowledge of this. Right here, I'm scouting him and trying to steal a few of his crates at the same time, because as Covenant you are put at a disadvantage since you can't build scouts out of your main base, which is always something I thought was unfair, and primarily why the UNSC do have a higher skill ceiling. Now, I've had this argument many times in the Halo Waypoint forums. There are a lot of people that like to deny that, but from years of experience playing Covenant, it's just a truth that I've found to be a fact. But right here, I am sending my chieftain over to that hook, and I have my brute out already. I went for a temple second just because usually on normal maps I like to go for a temple third because I think it's a good combination of economy and map presence. But on a map like this, you can go for a temple second and get that hook, and that's basically like going for a temple third. Here my brute doesn't want to obey, and he just randomly teleports. That's something that's very annoying and happens all the time, but you know, whatever. And so I've already got my hook. I do think that usually Covenant do get their hooks first, so something that high-level UNSC players will do, and it's been used against me, and I've lost as a result, is you have to time it so that right as the brute is about to go through the teleporter, you can get in there with a warthog and ram the brute. And, or not just one warthog, 2, because one warthog can't kill a brute with 1 ram. So I'm already on my way to getting that that tech hook, or whatever you would call it, and I click on that supply elevator and he doesn't have it. And we're almost 3 minutes into the game. That's another issue because, once again, I'm reiterating a lot of things, but it's very important. The longer you have those supply hooks, the more money you get out of them. But enough about the hooks. I'll explain my usual strategy now, which is a double hull on my citadel. I never build. Sometimes I do it. It depends on the map, but on maps like this, I never go for a hull on my keep. I think it hurts your economy too much. And so I can start to double pump hunters. Not only that, but I've taken that hook, so I'm already at Tech 2, and that means I can get Spirit Bond. And the way the dynamic between the Covenant and the UNSC works is Tech 2 Covenant can compete with Tech 3 UNSC. So he would need canny tanks to even be able to compete with the Spirit Bond hunters. And that doesn't mean that UNS or Covenant is OP, since in the long run UNSC do have 4 attacks and Covenant have 3. It's just a dynamic how the factions are different, yet still almost balanced, in my opinion. Some people do think they are balanced, some people think it's the other way around, where the Covenant is OP, but once again, it's just my experience that, at least in 1v1, Covenant is not quite as good. Here he does manage to take that hook back, but it's too late, once again, because I've already gotten in it and queued up my upgrades. Because if I get in that reactor for even 5 seconds and I manage to get my upgrades, then it was completely worth it. So I'm starting to build jackals since I need them to clear this hook out. And any stray flamethrowers are just going to get vortexed down. So I can take this back and deny him upgrades. Hope you're starting to see a theme here with the upgrades thing. Whoever gets upgrades first usually wins. But at the same time, you have to balance it with unit production. So right here, I'm thinking, instead of going after those hooks, I can just go in for a mid-game push, which is another trend in all 3 of these games. Basically, in every game, it's not gotten to the... It's ended in the mid-game. None of these games have lasted all that long. While I haven't like rushed and been able to win that way, it's not because I think rushing is stupid. It's because I think rushing usually doesn't work out very well because of UNSC turrets being quite good. But yeah, I haven't necessarily been rushing, but I've been able to end all 3 of these games before it's gone on too long. So really the weakness here is in the mid game and not having units out. So I don't know exactly what he did wrong. I do think from what I saw that he didn't get that supply hook as fast as he should have, and because of that he only has like 2 tanks here. They're going to easily be taken down, as I have 8 Tech 2 hunters, and even if he had more tanks, I'd still be able to deal with them pretty well. Obviously I don't play UNSC all that much, but I do think flamethrowers against the Covenant on this map are a very good unit, and in order to win against the Covenant on this map, you really have to spam them. So there was another downfall. So my 3 biggest tips would be: make sure you get map control. You need to balance unit production and prioritizing upgrades and counteracting the enemy. And by that I mean like ramming the brute before it can get in the hook, or something akin to that. Just imagine yourself racing your enemy and you trying to trip them or something. You know, there are no illegal moves in Halo Wars. So that wraps up this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.